Hi, I'm Dana Robinson, and this is How I Create.
Welcome to This Is How We Create, a show that digs deeper into the creative life of contemporary artists of color. Discover what feeds their creativity and how they found or are finding their artistic voice. Through these intimate and candid conversations, you'll gain insights into the lives of creative professionals of color that are hard to find anywhere else. Welcome to This Is How We Create. My name is Martine Severin, your host. Today, I'm so happy to have artist Dana Robinson in the guest chair. Dana Robinson has exhibited at Utah Museum of Contemporary Art, Texas State University, Fuller Rosen Gallery, 92nd Street Y, Spellerberg Projects, AIR Gallery, Hall Gallery, and Regular Normal. Robinson was a contributing artist for the New York Times Magazine and The Baffler, and her work has been written about in Artsy, It's Nice That, and Ain't Bad Magazine, to name a few. She was a fellow at AIR Gallery, a Vision Fund resident at ISAP, and has recently shown at Turley Gallery in Hudson, New York, and the Bureau of General Services Queer Division in New York City. She has made several public works with Artbridge in Bushwick, New York, for Meta in the Bronx, and for LinkedIn in the Empire State Building. Welcome to the podcast, Dana.
Thank you. It's so great to talk with you. I'm so happy to be here.
We were talking about how I created the podcast and why I created the podcast, not before the show began. And, essentially I created the podcast because I really wanted to talk with the artists of my time that I'm just really fascinated with their genius. So, genius, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I know, no pressure, Dana.
Wow, genius. Well, no one's ever called me that before. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Dana, you grew up in Florida, right? You were born in Florida, at least.
I was born in Brooklyn, actually, and I grew up in Florida. Yeah, I was born in...
Got it. So I'm Brooklynite, and you currently live in Brooklyn now. But both of your parents are doctors. Can you tell us the story of how you became interested in art?
Yes. So, both of my parents are doctors, but they've always been very supportive of just like me and my sister's interests. They never were really pushing us towards anything in particular. They just wanted us to be happy and to be like well educated and to be able to make good choices in our lives. I kind of started getting interested in art because at first I was interested in doing ballet and tap dancing, and which is really funny. My mom signed us up for these dance classes, and I ended up hating it. But it was a situation where she already paid for this thing and there was no backing out. She was like, you made your bed and now you have to lie in it. So me and my sister probably spent a summer like waking up at like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to go to this dance studio to like do all these like, ridiculous little dances that like I had no interest in like practicing or, remembering. I think I just wanted the tap shoes and like the ballet slippers. But kind of after that, I kind of sat down and thought about like, okay, I need to actually consider the things that I really want to do. And if whatever it is that I want to do costs like a large amount of money, like maybe I should reconsider. So I really kind of started just like playing around with paper, drawing, just like anything that I could kind of get my hands on around the house. I was always interested in drawing and painting like since I was a kid. I just like remember in like preschool, just kind of like drawing pictures of cats a lot. I've always also wanted to be an artist, but I really figured out that being an artist was something I like really wanted to do when my mom was telling me about this exhibit at the Guggenheim that was this chair of fat. I think it was a Joseph Beuys exhibit that she was telling me about. She didn't give me his name at the moment, but it was Joseph Beuys. And when I heard that somebody could have a chair of fat in like, one of the biggest museums in the world, I was like, what? That's crazy. Like, I want to do that. Like, that's so cool. So the more I looked into it, the more I was like, this is a really just like a way to access freedom in just like different avenues that I would not have access to otherwise. So, being an artist, and also I'm a graphic designer. So, being an artist and designer is just a way to be able to do whatever I want. I feel like graphic design is like a space for me to like create things for like other people in the world and kind of deal with like outside problems. And I feel like art is a way for me to process like internal problems. So that's a fun, just like a fun like balance that's created within like art creation.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, are you currently doing graphic design full time as well as doing your art full time as well?
Yes, I am. Yes. So it's just a lot of juggling involved, but I have a work from home job. So I'm kind of able to be in the studio every once in a while and also like do my graphic design work. So I'm able to create like a pretty good like design art balance.
That sounds lovely. I think one of the misnomers or something that's not always very well understood is that a lot of artists usually have a day job, if you will, right? And I know that
Yeah.
I do as well. And from the outside, things always look a certain way. But then when you talk with several artists, it's very few of us who actually are able to do our work full time. And sometimes it's kind of like an in and out thing too, that you do it full time for a little bit and then you go back into your day job. It always,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like that. So I guess my next question for you is, at what point during studying graphic design did you start doing your own personal work? Or did you always do your own personal work and then eventually went to school for, maybe you didn't go to school for graphic design, but I'd love for you to tell me the story of how all that came about.
Yeah. So I always was very focused on being an artist, but I was very interested in a lot of different mediums. So I've always incorporated collage into my work. So when I went to undergrad at a state school at Florida State University. And there they had a painting department, a printmaking, and I think sculpture. And when I looked at those different curriculums, it just seemed that I wanted to do all of them and beyond. And if I was to choose any of those particular focuses, then I would feel like I would have been missing out on like different ways of creating that honestly like graphic design gave me access to. So, like, for example, in the graphic design program, I was able to create a pattern, like a textile pattern, using this like coding software called processing, and then screen printed onto some fabric, and then made this like this dress, and then also this like dress fur skirt combination, like outfit for one of my final projects. And I feel like I would have never been able to do that if I just did an art focus. So I'm very focused on having as much freedom to create as possible. And that's always been the goal. And I do definitely love graphic design because being able to create beautiful things for people's environments, I think is really important. Like, I think everybody deserves to have like beautiful objects and be able to experience beautiful things in their spaces. So, me being able to do that, me being able to like create even like prints and like accessible art is something that's really important to me. And then also it's just an act of service to be able to like do graphic design work in general. So I really like that aspect of it. It's a very direct service. I would say that creating art is also a service, but I feel like it's like a little bit different. It's a little bit more like isolating sometimes, like you go into the studio and you kind of like, work on the thing and, yeah, you pop out and take pictures of it and people see the end result. But being able to work with people to create designs is a nice process to be able to be a part of as well.
I always have admired graphic designers because I feel like they see the world in such a way where they understand it, but then they're like Neo in the Matrix. Excuse me for the
I love the reference.
for the reference, but they could be like, oh, okay, so this is this is, we know the rules, but now let's break all of this
Exactly.
stuff. And I found that as a photographer, that was one important thing to learn in order to be a better photographer, to learn graphic design in order to be able to see in a much more in a way that could serve me and my vision. How would you describe your work? And I'm going to leave that open. You could respond in whatever way that you want, whether you want to talk about your graphic design work or you want to talk about some of your collage work as well.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the artwork. I would describe most of my work as collage. I really like the process of recycling different objects and using things that are just generally in my world. I really like using paper because it's something that everybody can like very much relate to. I really enjoy using different patterns that reference home. So I would describe my work as having like a kind of like a warmth and familiarity to it. That's something that I really like to be like within my work. Also, I would describe my work as kind of at times abstract, especially with the ways that I've been using ink and making like these motto print paintings. I'd say that there's like a moments of chance and unpredictability that create these more blurred images that I really enjoy. And then also I really enjoy I would say that my work is a little bit poppy. Like I really like pop art and I really do feel like that is something that has been present in my work for a very long time, especially with like the bright colors that I use, which is something that I really enjoy. Like I really like the ways that colors can connect you to different times and different spaces. A lot of the times I use like vintage materials, whether it's fabric or magazines, and just like the colors of the materials that I use, I feel kind of have like a certain like familiar nostalgia to them, even if the people that are viewing the work can't necessarily relate to that time. So, but I would say
Oh,
my work is.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, no. I think I interrupted you.
I was just gonna say my work is I would say my work is mostly collage and like kind of bringing things back into the cycle of like production in some way
So in
or
that case,
life.
did your process evolve over time, or did you come into approaching your art in a very specific way
It
from the
definitely
beginning, I should say?
evolves. It definitely evolved over time. It's like I really don't want to be bored. So as far as like creating all these different works, it's kind of like working through like these different ideas that I'm very interested in and kind of trying to like work to like the end idea of whatever it is. And then once I kind of figure that out, I either try to create like different iterations of it or I just move on to something else or I really like the process of like taking the scraps of like these different collages and then creating works with that. So it kind of creates a connection between these works, regardless of how like dramatically different they look. Like I made like some paper. I made like a series of paper that honestly kind of looked like ground beef, which was really interesting. And I made it from the magazine scraps that I kind of created when I was making like a series of collages. So
You mentioned when you were describing your work that you imbue or you look for warmth and familiarity, and you like it to be abstract as well. I think that those are such interesting ways of describing your work because it really comes through. Talking about process, I'm really would love to I'm interested in your routine and what are some of the things that you do to set yourself up for success, whether it is to visualize a next project or just in general something that you find that is important to your artistic practice.
like having creating like a structure, creating like a receptacle for creativity to be possible is something that I feel has really helped. So what I mean by that is like I wake up in the morning and I do like a little exercise thing and I make coffee and I go on a walk to the park. When I come home, it's like I feel like I'm kind of ready to start processing different ideas. And then also just maintaining like a certain level of movement, like going to the studio, whether I have like a specific plan or not, like being able to be in the space and be around materials and like maintain like a sense of curiosity and play and putting myself in that space for that to be possible. I'd say that that's like a big part of it. Also just kind of like giving myself time to daydream, like giving myself space to just kind of zone out and like sort through like different ideas and ask different questions. Like I really like asking the question, I wonder why. Like I had like a really funny one the other day. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, but just like I wonder why what are those things called? Like possums. Like possums are the only like marsupial on like North America, right? Which I think is really interesting. Like I wonder why marsupials are here and then why they're only in Australia, like mostly in Australia. And like what's up with platypuses and echidnas? Like, why are these things laying eggs? Just like all these different like, really like random, like playful questions that don't necessarily have to do with like my art practice. But I think it kind of like opens up like a space of like wonder to like start, exploring other ideas like that I might want to like make more specific work about. So
I have an 11-year-old, and there are all of these games that we play and random facts that he knows. So it's always interesting to hear and to ponder and to really go down the rabbit hole of questions that are just really that come out of nowhere. So I love that. And I would think that it keeps your art and your curiosity, starting as well.
yeah, yeah.
Who are some of your people who inspire you or that you look up to when as you've gone through your career?
Wow, that's like such a long list. I mean, my sister for sure, because I feel like she just kind of does whatever she wants. Like she works at like a junkyard in Baltimore, and she's like a car mechanic, and I'm just like, wow, she just does whatever she wants. Like she's just there, and she's just gonna make it work. She's just so inspiring. I mean, as far as artists go, I was talking to my friend about Sheila Pepe the other day, and I feel like she kind of made my grad school experience. Like she was very important when I was going to SBA, and Medea Farazine was also another mentor in that space. And as far as like artists, like other artists that I kind of am drawn to, and Sigmar Polka, I really like his work. Robert Rauschenberg, like I remember I went to the Armory show for the first time, I guess last year. And I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't think most of the work was for me. It just wasn't for me. But I saw this one piece and I just was drawn to it. I was like, this is the reason why I'm here. And I walk across this, the whole fair, whatever, to go to this thing. And it ends up being a Robert Rauschenberg piece. And so, I mean, I've just always been like very, very drawn to his work. And I'm not great at doing research on artists. I kind of just like see their work and kind of feels like seeing a familiar friend when I see the work. And I don't necessarily like, start digging around and like, listening to interviews and reading books. But I feel like it might be nice to start doing that.
I always go for the emotional impact myself, right? Like
Yeah.
when you see someone's work or when you see or there's a line or how they play with shadows or how they play with light. Those are always really interesting. And I have to say, if it's not for the podcast, I don't necessarily will go too deeply in doing background research. I think sometimes for me, it's important to understand or to ask myself the question, why am I interested in this specific thing about this artist? So one of the things I wanted to talk about are some challenges because, it's part of life. most times. Are there some challenges that you might have encountered in your career? And can you talk about how you might have overcome them?
I'd say that school has always been a challenge. It's like I'm very good at school, but it always feels like a fight. It always kind of feels like a fight between like the students and teachers and then the administration. And I feel like that's something that could be said across like a lot of different institutions. So that's definitely like a struggle. I also really don't like homework, so that's another reason I really dislike school. But I guess like the biggest struggle is like the moments where I'm not too sure exactly what create next. That I would say that is like the biggest thing because I'm not trying to like like be like special or anything. It's like I just want to create the work that I want to create. Sometimes it feels a little bit like I feel a little bit like off balance when I'm not too sure exactly what to create next. So yeah.
And what happens next? What happens when you're in that space?
I make a lot of different things. So sometimes I'll make a bag or make a piece of clothing, or I always feel like cleaning the house is like, productive procrastination. So kind of just like maintaining movement and just trying to like keep the brain moving, keep like the thoughts rattling around it there. And usually something pops up and I'm off to the next thing. So
I noticed that you have a shop, and I don't remember if it's an Etsy shop or something.
oh yeah.
I saw a link. When did you decide to create products to sell? Because you have some beautiful scarves, you have fabrics and just really cute pieces, just amazing pieces on that shop. I'm curious at what point did you decide to start selling products?
I recently finished doing an intern like residency program called Elsewhere, and I lived in Baltimore for a second, and then I moved back to Florida. Had no job, no money, and it was just kind of like me and my sewing machine, and I was making clothes at that time. And I was just like, okay, I need to do something. I'm going to start a business. So I just kind of started making clothes and like kind of forming my own brand and just wanting to kind of create just like beautiful one of a kind products. So I kind of started from there. And it's just kind of like continued to expand into like different items. So it started out as clothes, and I mean, now it's prints and scarves and bags. And then it's called Hot Dog Paradise because I love hot dogs. And I feel like a lot of my designs are very simple. And I end up like, simple designs with like very like bright, extravagant patterns. So it's kind of like a dressed up.
I love it. I love patterns. So I saw that. God, I need to place an order. So speaking of placing an order, the great Visa Butler says the best way to support artists is to buy their stuff. How else can we support you as an artist?
There's two shows that are happening that are coming up. One is actually opening tonight at Western Connecticut State University. And the other one is going to be opening up on February 22nd at Johansson Projects in Oakland. So those are two shows that are happening. And I recently had a show at Kate's Ferry Projects, and she's showing work right now in Mexico. So, I mean, there's art all over the place, and I mean, just go see art. It's great. Yeah. So I feel like that's the best way to support. Buy the things, see the things, show up and enjoy. People know.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dana. This was really special. I'm a big admirer, so this is such a treat to talk with you and to hear about how you approach your work and how you do things.
Yeah, it's been really great talking with you. It's really been so nice to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.